Our guest today is David Kindopp. He's an author. He wrote the book, Mañana Doesn't Mean Tomorrow. There's an article that you wrote as a result of bugs in your eye. Tell us about that one day.
I was looking through YouTube, and I was looking for spiritual, personal growth kinds of things, and I'm a fan of Esther and Jerry Hicks and Abrahams, and I came through one of their videos, which was the question and answer session they do a lot when they have meetings, and a person asked him, Abrahams, the entity, asked why, and it was really funny because of course he didn't want to ask this question, and he was really reluctant, and he said, this question was, why do dogs risk getting bugs in their eyes to put their heads out the window of a car? And everybody laughed, of course, and her answer was, that is a question that we've been waiting to answer. It is because the exhilaration or the risk of getting bugs in your eyes is worth the exhilaration of the ride. And that really struck me as just so profound. Oh, and then she said, and that's exactly the way you felt when you chose to come into this experience, when your soul chose to come into this physical experience, because you knew that the contrast was going to be worth the ride. And that just struck me as so interesting, because contrast is something that a lot of people don't want in their lives, because they think contrast is, contrast is like, I didn't want this kind of contrast, I didn't want to break up with my lover, or I didn't want to wait in line at the grocery store too long. I didn't want to ride in a smelly bus, But those contrasts are what keep us aware of what we like.
Exactly.
I mean, if we didn't have contrasts, if every day was 72 degrees and sunny and 8-mile-an-hour winds, how long would it take before you really wanted to go for a walk in the mountains or wished for a thunderstorm? And yet, at the same time, people they don't appreciate the contrast, and they make it bad. So I don't want it, but it's essential, for your observation about what's good and bad.
Yeah, contrast forces us to create some clarity of what we really want, what we really love, and what we really aspire to. And if we don't get that, we get more contrast.
Right. Oh, yeah, yeah. And so instead of denouncing contrast, like, oh, gee, think about it as, okay, this, I know now more of what I don't want, so it helps me understand more what I do want. Exactly. And I can make more intelligent, I hope, choices.
Right.
And we're all, and I think I mentioned that in that piece, that right. It's not easy, I grapple with contrast every day, because I try hard not to quote unquote preach when I write. I try to, make observations. I get a little excited once in a while, and I maybe get on my soapbox, but it's my piece, But I really do try to be more neutral about it, and I admit it. I've got my issues just like everybody else on the planet. But I think it's worth at least looking at those,
Well, if you look over at the worst thing that ever happened to you, you meaning anybody.
Sure.
All right. And you can sit there and booby schnitzel about it and wallow in self-pity, and then go out and have something else bad happen to you, because that's all you're thinking about anyway. So you're attracting this nonsense to you because that's what you're dwelling in.
Right.
Or you can say, wow, look at what I learned from that. Mm-hmm. And if you didn't learn from it, then you need to go out and have some more bumps on the head. Mm-hmm. Because right. That's what bumps on the head are all about.
Right. It's easy to get sidetracked with being uncomfortable with contrast, instead of recognizing it as a benefit and a great thing.
That's the whole key, I think, as well, because if we were totally protected from anything, put us in a castle and block it up and protect us from anything in the real world, we would not understand the real world at all. We wouldn't have compassion, right. We wouldn't have understanding,
right.
We wouldn't have a desire to seek a better world and to make it better, because we wouldn't know the difference.
Right.
We wouldn't even be contemplating those things.
Right.
It's the things that go wrong in life that make us analyze and study what we could have done, what we might have done, and what we might be able to do in the future.
Right.
If nothing goes wrong, then you sit there and suck your thumb and look down at other people that don't have perfect lives and think something's wrong with them.
Right.
You don't comprehend that life is full of actually delicious challenges.
Right.
And if you're afraid of them, of course, you want to stay away from them. But if you're courageous and you say, life is for the living,
Right.
and I want to taste it.
Right.
I want to be part of it.
Right.
I want to live it.
Oh yeah.
Well, the very concept of change is frightening for the average human being. Do you realize that moving is way up on the list of one of the highest stresses?
Oh
Like
yeah.
death,
Right.
divorce, and moving.
Right. Right.
What does that say about
know.
the average person's willingness to change?
Yeah.
Moving is like a major trauma and emotional event
Right. Oh yeah.
because you're uprooting everything, your friends, your house, your source of income possibly,
Mhm.
and that is just almost incomprehensible
Mhm.
to the average individual
Right.
as far as comfort level is concerned.
Right.
It's like, whoa.
Right. Oh yeah, and again, like I said, if you take that theory and then you apply it to not only moving, but moving to a foreign country, a lot of people have to give up their close ties with their kids and their grandkids and whatnot, and of course some of them want to run away from their kids probably, their grandkids. But yeah, I mean, so it definitely takes it's a different breed of cat. It's interesting because I know what you're saying. There's a chart somewhere about all the different experiences and what stress levels they cause.
Yeah.
And I looked at that, and for me one time I added up all the checks about what I've been through in my life, and basically I should be dead.
Well, one of the things that's so cool about that chart, if you can recapitulate yesterday, in other words, how you interpret it, you can go back and say, oh, that was really, really hard. But then you think about what really did you learn from it? What did you get out of it? And you look at it and it was worth putting your head out the window to get bugs in your eyes.
Sure.
Because you look at it and think, my word, how I've changed, what I learned doing this and that and the other. What an adventure. And when you realize that the worst things in your life probably provided the greatest strengths
Right.
and your greatest lessons.
Right.
Then you go back and you recapitulate it and you think, my word, I wouldn't trade my life for anything. This has been quite a Ferris wheel, roller coaster ride,
Mhm.
but look at me now.
Right. Right. Well, there is a philosophy that every leap in higher consciousness is preceded by, a quote-unquote disaster of some kind in your life.
Well, let's get realistic about disaster. I read a while back, and I don't remember what psychologist wrote this report, but he was talking about people that changed their life.
Mhm.
And basically he was basing that most people don't make a serious change in their life until what they're doing no longer works.
Right. Right.
And his demonstration or illustration was, find the drunk laying in his vomit in the street, knowing that he will die if he doesn't quit drinking. Find the drug addict that knows that he can't stand up, move, function, and get through the day, and it's going to kill him if he doesn't stop his drugs. These two people are the ones that will now change or die. That's their choice, change or die.
Mhm.
And if they choose life, man, they drop it, it's over with. Those that want to play with it, because it's still working for them, have to go down further, and it has to get tougher and tougher and tougher until they change. But you look at people that have faced extreme negative circumstances, especially when they have come to a point where they say, if I die, at least it was purposeful, I will do it anyway. Then what are you going to do? They're invincible.
Right. Oh, yeah.
If you can't threaten them with death, what are you going to do with them?
Right.
Because they don't care anymore.
Right.
And these people have changed the world. I mean, Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King. We can just name a lot of people that said, okay, I've had enough of this nonsense. It's truth, period. Regardless of the outcome, whether you can deal with it or not. And roll forward. And so we have these magnificent icons of human beings throughout history and throughout myth and fable and everything that we have that try to teach us that to climb the mountain can be the greatest experience of your life.
Right. Oh yeah. Yeah. And you know, I obviously I don't, you know, take it to that level, you know, in what I write. I mean, I treat it much more lightly than that. But I think, again, just the idea that maybe I can mention or point out the idea that, you know, contrast, like I said, even if it's a lot of contrast, maybe that's not so bad. And it's interesting, I think I use an analogy in what I wrote about my software program in my computer for contrast, for photo editing. So I go to the contrast button, and I go normal, it's normal where it starts, and you know, let's say it's a picture of two individuals. They're, you know, they're visible, and you can see the background, and you can see them, and it all kind of blends together, you know, normal contrast. And then when you go to minimal contrast, you go to negative 100 on that, then everybody just washes in, you know. So there's no contrast, but it's just kind of a wash, and you can kind of, you know, the people are kind of bland, you know. Then you go to plus 100 contrast, and the people pop right out, and they're really visible. The background still is visible, but it's like kind of in the background, and the figures are really bold, and really you can see them there, you know. And that's what high contrast does.
Right.
It makes it vivid, you know. And that's one of my challenges, is to get on the bus, you know, in Mexico, let's say in Mazatlan, on a hot day. I mean, in the summer, the heat index a couple of days ago in Mazatlan was 127.
Whoa!
127. That's hot. And when you're sitting in Centro, in this, you know, when there's narrow streets and no wind, and all these people are hustling around, and you're waiting for the bus, it's hot, and you're sweating, and it's kind of miserable. And then you get on the bus, and maybe it's air conditioned, maybe it isn't. Most of them are, the nice ones. But if you don't get on, if you're going somewhere where there isn't an air conditioned bus that goes there, it's just, you know, it's not fun. And one of my biggest challenges was getting on that bus and like being in the contrast, and what can I get from this? In fact, it's interesting because I wrote one piece. It's called the 29 stop 31 topes. Topes are the speed bumps in Mazatlan on the roads that are everywhere, and the buses hit those, and it's. I'm writing about contrast, and I'm thinking, and I'm realizing again that contrast is a good thing. We need contrast, and a lot of us don't like, or we are upset with contrast that we don't like. We have different contrast, and when contrast comes along that we don't think we want, we get upset. We call it a bad experience or whatever. But it's really important and necessary for us to understand what we do want and where we do want to go, and hopefully we'll learn from those contrasting experiences, and we'll grow and we'll become better. But we're not going to eliminate contrast from our lives. It's a part of life. It is the ride. It's the experience. It's the journey. It makes it. Without it, you know, we have nothing. I mean, maybe I mentioned. I mean, what if you had every day was 72 degrees and blue sky and 8-mile-an-hour winds? You know, you very soon you'd wish for a thunderstorm, or you'd really want to take a walk in the pine forest, you know, where it was chilly in the morning. So I think understanding and appreciating the contrast is good. And I think I mentioned you know, I don't like riding the bus. I hate riding the bus. And in Mazatlan, I rode the bus for a while. And that's a contrast that I had to try to come to grips with. And I took a ride one time, 45-minute bus ride from where I was into Centro. And you know, it's a 15-minute ride in the car and a 45-minute bus ride, because bus stops 30 times and goes around any number of twists and turns, and you know, it goes slow, and it goes over the topes, which are the speed bumps that are everywhere in Mazatlan, and you know, riding this ancient bus in the poor part of town, and it's not air conditioned, and it can be really hot. I think, well, this is the end of July. A couple of days ago, the heat index in Mazatlan was 127 degrees. And that can be hot. When you're in Centro and you're in a crowded street and there's no breeze and it's 127 degree heat index, you know, it can be miserable. And that's been my challenge, is ride the bus and learn from it. And I took this one bus ride, 45 minutes, and I was so pissed off when I got off the bus. I was just fuming. I was fuming at this circumstance that I had to live through. And then I got to thinking about it, and I thought, God, that was a great experience. I should write about that. And I get on the bus with my yellow pad and my pen out in the middle of nowhere, and I'm like the second person on the bus because I'm at the end of the line or the beginning of the line. And I'm sitting, and I think, where am I going to sit? I sit in the right front seat, right next to the driver, right behind him, so I can see the road and I can watch the people coming and going. And I'm in there, and here I am, and no gringo's ever been on this bus route, ever. And I'm sitting there with my yellow pad and my pen, and I'm making notes. And people are looking at me like, what in the hell is this guy doing? Where is he from? You know? And they are they think they got on the wrong bus, you know, because there's a gringo on there with a yellow pad. So I take this ride, and you know, the bus is pounding over the road, and then he hits these speed bumps, and it's like pa-choom, pa-choom, and the whole thing rattles and shakes, and then the guy will take off and try to get as much speed as he can before the next curve on the dusty road or the stoplight. I mean, there's just no rhyme or reason, you think, to the driving. And then they swerve and they miss the kids and the taxis and the taco stands. And it's just unbelievable. But I'm on this ride now thinking, whoa, I'm going to write about this. This is pretty cool. So I think I like it. It's one of my favorite pieces. It's fairly short and it's very, I think, very descriptive and very funny. And the title of this is the 29 stop 31 topes testicle slap bus ride. And I make these observations about what it's like riding on this bus. You know, my friend Roberto said, well, you got to sit here because there's less movement, you know, in the axles, and you got to sit there. And none of it's good, you know. I mean, you sit on this bus and it's just, the front wheels hit the topes, and by the time that shock's over, the back ones are doing it, and it's boom, boom, boom. It's unbelievable. And I look around, and, you know, and everybody's fine with it, you know, and they in and out, off and on. It's just, so anyway, I thought it was interesting. And of course, part of the story was, how do you protect yourself? You know, do you grab, you know, and put your hand in your crotch and hold on when you go over those bumps or not? And of course, you know, that looks kind of funny to the locals, you know. So anyway, you know, you got to read it. But that's going back to contrast, and you know, and bugs in your eyes, and it's all about, it's worth the ride. You know, all this crazy stuff is worth the ride. And for me, that was a great lesson about looking at it differently, where, wow, you know, I can either be pissed off and mad that I have to do this, or I can think, wow, what a great story that is. And I told my friend Roberto that, and he looked at me like, wow, that's amazing, you know, because he hates the bus too, you know, and I think any sane person does. It's like the story of walking down the street, you know, the story about somebody walking down the street, and oh my God, I walked down the street and I fell in a big hole. You know, oh my God, I walked down the street again and fell in a big hole. And then, oh, I walked down the street and I saw the hole and I walked around it, you know. And then the next one is that I walked on the other side of the street. I saw it, but I didn't get near it. And the next thing is that, well, I walked down a different street. You know. But you can do that in your mind too, you know. And that's not easy. Like I said, I grapple with contrast all the time. But it's just worth thinking about, and it's worth, I think, sharing is all, you know. So it's like on my drive over here, as I mentioned, you know, I put the top down on my car and I'm driving along and I'm listening to this great new song I found, and 3 blocks from here, pow, man, I get something in my eye and it's burning and stinging, and I'm thinking, damn. Then I had to stop and remember, oh, it's worth bugs in my eyes, you know, to be driving in the convertible on a beautiful sunny day, you know. So I was able to turn that around from, oh, darn it, to, oh, well, you know, that's what it is. How much more harmony would there be? How much more harmony would there be in the world? You know, where people wouldn't be all banging around at each other, being mad about the contrast. They'd be learning from it. You know, and that's one of the great lessons of becoming more conscious or spiritually aware, is to learn from it while it's happening instead of being immersed in it and being angry and pissed off about it. Yeah. And I don't know if I want to mention again that that's what I like about people who live in Mazatlan, Mexico, gringos, you know, people in the United States and Canada. Those folks have definitely taken the view that some contrast is good, because you don't move to a foreign country without appreciating contrast. Absolutely. And that's fun. You have that in common with most of those people that are there, which is really great. You know, you may not have anything else in common with them. I've seen people from totally different walks of lives there become friends because they're there. You know, it's really interesting. Yeah, it's like you know, if you're tied up in the harbor in Papeete in your sailboat, you're friends with everybody there before you even meet them because you have 80% of your life in common. And I really appreciate those kind of people that embrace the contrast and not only embrace it, but they create it. You know, it's interesting how I was just compelled to get a boat and take it to Mexico. And, you know, obviously that turned out interestingly, you know, I mean, that turned out to be a 3-year, the best of times and the worst of times kind of experience, you know. But it's true, I look back at that and I think, well, I got $1 million experience and it only cost me, you know, a couple $100,000. Yeah. I definitely am becoming more, what's the right word? Conservative, I guess, cautious. I mean, I don't chase down craziness like I used to. You know, I definitely am much more mellow about that kind of stuff. And I don't put up with craziness as long as I used to in my life. You know, when craziness starts to happen, I try to extricate myself from it more quickly. Not always easy. Wiser, I think. Yeah, I mean, I drove back, I don't know, 2 months ago or so. I drove back from Mazatlan in my car, and I was alone. And I was coming back to California, and I actually had this. It dawned on me when I'm driving back, and I'm in the middle of nowhere, and I'm driving down the road, and it dawned on me that, you know, this could be dangerous. And in the old days, it was like, you know, this isn't dangerous. You know, who cares? You know, so people get kidnapped, and so you could get caught in, you know, crossfire somewhere. You know, you talk about all the statistics and no problem. And now I actually think, well, you know what? This could be dangerous. You know? So I'm thinking more about those kinds of things. Why go in search of contrast, if you will, when there's plenty of it? You know, just when you walk out the door, I guess could be one way of looking at it.
You ever see people that keep having the same kind of drama over and over and over again? Finally a light goes on in your head and you say, got it, don't need that anymore.
Mm-hmm. That sounds like me.
It sounds like all of us at some point in our life.
Mm-hmm. Right.
At some point in our life. We reenact the stage, blame the world, move, and take ourselves with us.
Right. Oh yeah.
And because we take ourselves with us, we reenact the stage again with different players playing the same parts, the same theme, in the same old drama. Human beings do that.
Yeah.
Because that's the nature of our being. Until we get it, we don't get it, or until we no longer need it. When I say need it, I'm talking about the lesson that was in it. Because you say, well, who needs this drama? A lot of people do need it to overcome something inside of them that they haven't overcome yet. To gain a wisdom, to gain a strength, to continue to have the adventure because they love it, whatever. But there's a need.
Right.
And when the need runs out, you just don't feel the need anymore, that's all.
Right. Yeah, I've talked to a lot of people, and you know, they have this idea that they can't get it. Yeah, oh, why am I doing this over and over again? And I've felt the same way, that people begin to feel they doubt their ability to make intelligent choices tomorrow because they feel condemned by their past.
You can make a mistake without being one.
Right. Oh yeah, absolutely, and it's a challenge to you know to live that and to own that.
Right.
Right.
But when you go back and recap what you learned or didn't learn because it kept happening, and you think, well, okay, it couldn't have happened if I hadn't filled the part in this play. What part am I playing, and why am I playing it? And is the opinion of other people more important than my own consciousness of who I am? Or is it that I feel validated when I'm a martyr? Or figure out what it is that sucked you into this game.
Right.
And usually it's something that happened a long time ago. It's some residue left over from your childhood. And that sounds silly, but it's true with most of us. I was reading a thing the other day where siblings, pick on each other when they're growing up. And the youngest kid, which was always picked on by the sibling above him, actually came to believe that they couldn't be loved if they weren't forfeiting everything to gain. They could buy love with the forfeiting.
Sure,
forfeiting.
sure, right.
I'll serve you, and then you'll like me.
Right.
Which, of course, is not true, because what happens is then you become used and used and used. Because if you don't respect yourself enough not to let people use you, they don't respect you either.
Right.
And that's when you wake up and see that you're done with the game. But how long does it take? That's just an example.
Sure. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Just an example.
Yeah, and I think for me, as I live every day, writing about experiences helps me get those things. I mean, it helps me understand what I'm doing, you know, and
Right.
and maybe not why I'm doing it often, but at least it gives me a picture of, you know, God, you doing that again, you know, and that helps. That helps a lot. And I've actually come to the point where I'm more comfortable with quote unquote the mistakes I've made, because I know it's just a process, and I try. I mean, I try every day to be a little bit better, make the world a little bit better place, but you know, sometimes it's not. Sometimes it doesn't work exactly that way. And for all of us, I mean, obviously we're not perfect, but I think it's good to make that effort. And again, when you write about it, it's amazing when you write. I mean, people have been through that. You write things down, and it changes everything.
It's clear.
It changes everything. It clarifies things, and there's a certain power of putting things in writing.
Well, that's why I was telling you that maybe you don't realize it, but your writing is clarifying on many points. Maybe you don't even realize that. For others that read it, it's like, wow, this is something to think about. And you think you're just writing a story for the day. But you're making us contemplate the interplay of human nature in that story.
Yeah, well, yeah, and I don't really think about it that much, and maybe I don't, because I get really mixed reviews, if you will,
Right.
about what I write. I mean, some people really like my writing, and some people just say, ugh, you know, it's drivel, or you know, you can do better than that, or you know, you shouldn't write about that, or you know, I recognize myself in that, and you know, boo-hoo on you.
Well, when you look at your audience and their opinion, keep in mind that they are one little piece in the puzzle of life. Now imagine the whole globe cut into little tiny puzzle pieces. The only view they can have is the one they're standing on.
Right. Oh, sure. Yeah. Yeah.
The only view they can possibly have is born of their own experience in their own life. They absolutely cannot see beyond that. Dave, I want to thank you for coming in and letting us do this, because you're always fun and intelligent, and it sparks thinking. And I believe that sparking thinking is really a wonderful gift to humanity. I really do.
Absolutely. I agree.
Yeah, and so I think this is really great. So thank you.
Oh, thank you.